Hey guys, this is Chevy JP86 back again with another video, and this is Extreme Gaming. And in this episode I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the Final Fantasy series and what I think on it and which one I think is good and which ones I think are not so good. So let's get going. Okay guys, so let's start from the very beginning. Final Fantasy 1 came out in North America 88, 89 I believe, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it came out, it took the media and just everybody by storm. Like, everybody was like, Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy. So people were wondering when the next one was going to come out. Well, 1991 came the second one, and then 94 came the third one. And then after that, it was, I guess, 97 is when they brought out number 7. So when people seen number 7 come out, and then they see the third one on the Nintendo and think, where the hell are the other 3 games? Now, to get down to which games I thought were the best out of the Final Fantasy series and which games were meh. Now, okay, my favorite Final Fantasy games out of the series would have to be number 4. That has got to be one of my all-time favorite games, like, for Final Fantasy, period. 1, the most classic storyline and the one that I remember the most because I played a lot of it back in my childhood. And that's really, number 4 is what got me into this series to begin with, so I have to say number 4. The second Final Fantasy in the series that I'd have to hand it to is number 7. And a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, why isn't that your first? That is such an awesome game. Well, you know what? It is an amazing game, but it didn't get me into the series. I didn't play 7 first. I played 4 first. 7 had amazing gameplay. It introduced some awesome characters. Sephiroth, you name it. Cloud, Barret. You know, every single character in that game had so much development, and that's what it's the story derives itself. Like, you can just sit back and just read the dialogue after dialogue after dialogue, and that's another good thing about Final Fantasy VII, is that it is one of the best translations from Japanese to English out of all of them. So that it gets props right there just for that. Now, the ones after that, I'd have to say I have a soft spot for 8. I liked 8. I really liked 9. 9 was an awesome game because it brought back some of the retro in with the new stuff. So I was just like, especially the music. If you listen to the music in 9, there's a lot of retro music there that they kind of revamp. So I really like that. And then the next one I'd have to say after that would be 10. Would be a good one that I like. 12, I'm so-so with that. I didn't mind 12. I didn't get into it enough to finish it. The battling system's kind of off in that game. I wasn't feeling the battling system. It was good enough to play through for a while, but then I was just, it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, you know? It was alright. I will play through it eventually. I will play through it. But now, the offbeat of the series, I'd have to say 2. 2 is one of the most offbeat games of the Final Fantasy series. Good music and all that, and it had some good stuff to it, but just the gameplay for the battling was off. I mean, I don't like leveling my character up in pieces. I like to know that when my character levels up, it levels up in all attributes. Not just, you know, what I mean by that is like, you level your strength up by 1, you level your vitality up by 1. You know, you can't just level them all up at once by gaining in 1 level. You know, when you gain a level, HP up, everything up, you know. It doesn't do that. It does it in pieces, and I didn't really dig that. Okay? Now, to get to another one that I wasn't really on par with was 3. 3 was good, but it could have been much better to me. I don't know. Like, the job system was awesome. It was a really good concept for the game, but it didn't do it to the point where it was just, the story wasn't driven as hard as number 4 or 5 even. 5 was good. That's another one I didn't mention earlier that was good. 5 was actually pretty good. And 6. So there's not too many games in the Final Fantasy series that I did not like, but there's just a couple of them there that I was just I stay away from them. Now, the one Final Fantasy that they've remade the most would have to be Final Fantasy IV, because we got Final Fantasy, where is it here? Just going through my games. The one on the very bottom. We got Final Fantasy IV remade on the PS1. Now, it wasn't so much a remake to the point where they actually remade the graphics. They kind of touched it up a little bit, put some cutscenes in there. As you can see on the front case here, there's some actual cutscenes from the game. Now, that was kind of cool. I like that. It's a good touch to the game. But the one good thing that they had on the PlayStation 1 version of Final Fantasy IV was the dialogue. Now, in the original Japanese release of Final Fantasy IV, there is quite a bit of swearing, and some of the people that swear the most, I believe, is Kane and Edge. Edge has got a potty mouth. So when you play through the game and look at Edge, the stuff that he says, he doesn't really say that. He says a lot of crazy swear words in Final Fantasy IV from Japan. But nonetheless, it's still one of the best translations you can get for over in the English territory here up in North America. Would have to be this one for the dialogue. Now, I'd have to say the best one yet for gameplay and everything like that would have to be, and graphics for sure, Final Fantasy IV on the DS. This game got me back into Final Fantasy IV, because I've always played I'd always go through Final Fantasy IV, like, you know, once in a while I'd just go through the whole game, right? But this one brought me back to it, and I gotta say, guys, if you like Final Fantasy or like playing remakes of games, definitely a game to pick up. Final Fantasy IV, the remake, was awesome on the DS. And even for a game that didn't, like, of course there's not going to be the swearing there like in the Japanese release, because it's Nintendo, they're not going to do that. But at the same time, this is also a really good translation. Like, there's a lot of medieval translation, a lot of medieval dialogue that you hear here. And they did really well with this game on the DS. So, and there's voice acting too, so I was kind of surprised with that. They fit all of that into this. No, it was really good. And of course, guys, you can't forget the original, Final Fantasy II. This is what got me into it, man. This is the game that started it all. So I'm gonna hand it to Squaresoft or Square Enix for bringing out such a stellar game. And I mean, this got me into the series, so I still love this game on the SNES. When they brought out Final Fantasy VI on the PlayStation, and that was when you really knew that 6 was 6. It wasn't 3. 3 over here was 6 in Japan. So this is the game that explained that, and this actually has 5 and 6 in here. So this is actually a good pickup if you guys can find this game, or you might already have it in your library. But for the people that don't, try and find this, because it is an awesome game to have in the PS1 collection, period. No, it's just really good. And did I mention the music in FF5 and FF6 were awesome? Some of the most memorable music is right. But anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes my my rant on Final Fantasy. I wouldn't call it really a rant, but it concludes my thoughts on the series of what I think is the best games and which games I don't think are that good. And feel free to place some comments down below. And what are your thoughts on Final Fantasy series? What did you think was your best Final Fantasy game? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be glad to answer any questions any of you might have. And yeah, leave any of your thoughts down there, like I said, what you thought was the best Final Fantasy game. Anyways, guys, thanks again. Take care.